I switched on to the climate crisis halfway through my PhD, thanks to Beyond the Flood, actually, that Leonardo DiCaprio documentary. And it did change my understanding of the world. It changed the way that I relate to the world. And I didn't have access to that as an undergraduate. There was nothing on the curriculum that even remotely pointed me towards that.
I've been involved in a lot of open letters and having hundreds, sometimes thousands of scientists sign on to these letters. But what happens is that the letter will be acknowledged, but the requisite action isn't taken.
I couldn't see how the work we're doing as scientists would actually get us as humanity anywhere nearer a state where we could actually live equitably with nature and with one another.
All my role seemed to be was making ever more strident warnings or attempts to alert the public as to where we're heading, which wasn't really having an impact at all. And I know that's a frustration shared by many academics.
And the insight for me was that academia was in fact part of the problem.
In so many cases, you have the very same institutions that are warning about the interconnected threats that we're facing, environmental and social, but then, on the very same campus, you have curricula that are at best not really preparing students for the world that they're entering into, and at worst are actively teaching skills that are perpetuating the crises that we're facing.
A lot of our academics feel anxiety, feel even a little bit manipulated, feel that they're overburdened with work, feel constrained in the kind of questions they're allowed to ask, or feel that the work they're doing is more determined by funding agencies rather than the needs of society.
I could not, in good conscience, continue in my role developing a very successful curriculum portfolio, which I felt was simply not fit for future purpose.
What the situation demands right now, this very bold thinking, transformative action at scale that probably humanity's never seen before. We need new ways of working, and also we need new ways of thinking. So if academics aren't centrally involved in that, then you do wonder what we are for.
Faculty for a Future is part of that. It's an answer to that question that people are putting to us, which is, what can I do?
All I want is for students to be able to have access to the education that's going to enable them to navigate the future that we're facing, because there's no escaping it.
We also want to connect academics with local communities, with wisdom holders from indigenous communities, from traditional knowledge of all sorts, from people who actually experience these crises on an everyday basis, to enrich the conversation and enrich the space of questions that are allowed to be asked by academics and researchers.
I mean, we've got very specific aims and objectives, and you can learn all about them on the website. But I think I'm a much more honest appraisal of the situation. We don't know where it's going to go.
We will become that global academic community that's having these really interesting conversations about what is the role of academia, because it should not be focused on the reification of knowledge. It should be focused on addressing problems of how we can all live well on a planet of finite resources.
And we will have different spaces to get active, different projects that correspond to each person's inclination.
If we can connect, we can all begin to at least see the outlines, the shadows of this future world that we would love to live in.
And I hope that Faculty for the Future will grow very rapidly and concentrate more mental power and imagination that exists abundantly around the world, but channels it into ways that are much more conducive to real solutions, rather than solutions that are simply based on the same technologies and the same pathways that have created the problem in the first place.
There has to be some acknowledgement, I think, of the fact that academia cannot continue in its business as usual role.
It's not value driven, it's not ideological to stand up and say, I'm going to do everything in my professional power to make sure that what I do safeguards life on this planet.
There's got to be something else that we can do as academics to both connect our practice, our day job, with the real concerns that we've got about where we're heading. There's got to be something between writing a paper and spending a night in jail. And I think there is this tremendous latent opportunity, latent power in academia across the world where we can do something really transformative.